They say the walls of Santa still hum at night. If you press your ear against the cold limestone, you will hear voices whispering, stammering, mouthing syllables that never form complete words. Some insist it is only the wind scraping through the cloisters. Others, especially the elders of San Telmo village, will not walk past the convent after dark, for they know that the voices belong to the ones who can no longer speak. The tale begins in the year of our Lord 1682, a year swollen with famine and fever. The port city of stank of salt and rotting figs, its harbour congested with ships carrying both silk and plague. Inland, among the cracked hills, sat the convent of Santa, whitewashed and windowless, its iron bell tolling at dawn and dusk, calling both the pious and the penitent. Here lived Sister Magdalena de la Cruz, a woman whose name still causes even priests to purse their lips. Records say she entered the convent at 15, already marked by visions some claim divine, others demonic. By 30, she had become the mistress of discipline, charged with correcting the young girls sent by their families to be purified of vanity, deceit, and disobedience. The documents I have read fated, where meat and ink blurred by damp describe her not as a sadist, but as a woman who believed she was a surgeon of the soul. The tongue, she wrote in her marginalia, is the root of all feminine sin. It is the serpent within the mouth. A lying tongue must be chastened. A gossiping tongue must be silenced. A blaspheming tongue must be cut away from its master, so that it might learn humility in isolation. The first incident appears in the trial notes of 1685, a girl of 14. Herrera, accused of spreading indecent songs among her peers, was brought to Magdalena. What passed in that chamber is not detailed in the main text, but the testimony of a laundress mentions the girl emerging pale, her lips trembling, her speech reduced to breathless murmurs. A week later, she disappeared entirely. Sister Magdalena wrote in her private ledger, "The tongue is taken for safekeeping. It shall not rot, for it holds the record of sin." The ledger shows careful list names of girls, dates, and beside each, a description in a cramped, looping hand: tongue preserved in brine, tongue stitched into linen pouch, tongue sewn shut. At first, the Mother Superior saw only the results: quieter holes, fewer quarrels among the wards, more prayers whispered without resistance. Yet a certain fear began to thicken in the air, like the scent of candle wax left too long in a locked room. I have held one of the linen pouches in my own hand. It lies now in the restricted section of the diocesan archive, sealed in a glass case. The stitches are blackened with age, the cloth stiff. Inside, if you dare to believe it, is something small, curled, and utterly silent. Whether it was once human flesh, I will not claim, but the shape is convincing enough to trouble sleep. The first part of this account must end with the arrival of the girl who would undo Magdalena's ordre, girl named Beatrice, who arrived at Santa on a rain-swept evening in November. Her eyes bright with defiance, her voice like a blade. In the years to come, she would either destroy the nun or be destroyed by her. The truth lies between these two fates, and it is not gentle. Beatrice was 16 when she was delivered to Santa, her wrists bound with coarse rope, her skirts damped from the storm. The priest who escorted her gave no blessing upon departure. Instead, he murmured something to the Mother Superior that made the old woman's lips tighten. The official record states she was guilty of persistent insolence, unchaste speech, and refusal to confess. In the margins, someone, perhaps a scribe, grown careless, had scrawled a single word: dangerous. Sister Magdalena met her in the refectory, where a crucifix loomed over the table like a watchful sentinel. She noted the girl's gaze did not lower before it. "You will learn silence," Magdalena said. Beatrice only smiled. For weeks, the convent watched the battle of wills. Beatrice refused to sing the psalms. She whispered to the younger girls during the night prayers. She smuggled bits of charcoal to scrawl crude drawings on the back of hymnals. When confronted, she replied with words sharpened to injure. "Christ wept for sinners," she told Magdalena one evening. "You do not weep, you hunger." It was then, according to the journal entries I have examined, that Magdalena began her most elaborate punishment. She summoned Beatrice to the infirmary after matins. The room smelled of vinegar and myrrh, the shutters closed tight against the morning sun. On the table lay a wooden box bound with iron clasps. From within came a faint rattle. "Do you know what rests inside?" Magdalena asked. Beatrice shook her head, though her jaw set in defiance. "These," the nun whispered, "are the tongues of liars and harlots. They speak no more, yet they testify always. She opened the box. What Beatrice saw is not recorded, though her later testimony in the Inquisition's custody suggests the sight did not frighten her, at least not then. Instead, she laughed, a short, scornful sound. Magdalena's hands did not tremble as she reached into the box and drew forth one of the linen pouches. She placed it in Beatrice's palm. The girl did not drop it, but her smile faltered when she felt its weight, its slight, fleshy give beneath the cloth. In the months that followed, Beatrice's resistance grew stranger. She did not cease her whispers, but she began to speak of dreams in which the pouches opened of their own accord, spilling not tongues but live birds with beaks stained red. Some girls began to avoid her, others clung to her for the thrill of hearing what she would say next. Sister Magdalena watched with an expression that the Mother Superior misread as serenity. It was not serenity, it was calculation. The critical moment came during Lent of 1686. A novice named Clara was discovered in the chapel, her mouth bleeding, unable to form words. She was found clutching her own tongue, severed cleanly, her eyes wide with an ecstasy that could not be called earthly. Magdalena's ledger records, not taken by my hand. The flock begins to offer itself. From that moment, the convent ceased to be merely a place of correction. It became a shrine to silence, and Beatrice's role in this transformation remained ambiguous. By midsummer of that year, the convent's choir was reduced to a hollow murmur. Visitors remarked upon the eerie stillness of Santa, how the young faces appeared pale and strained, how few mouths moved during Mass. The Mother Superior, though troubled, continued to shield Magdalena from questions. The nuns' methods, she told herself, were severe but effective. Discipline required sacrifice. Yet the diocesan inspectors began to receive letters unsigned, but written in the same cramped, urgent hand, describing pouches of human flesh hidden beneath the altar, describing jars of brine in which floated pale, shapeless things. One letter spoke of a ritual conducted at the third hour, after Compline, in which Magdalena would stitch the severed tongue into a small slit in the victim's scapula, that it might remain always near the heart and the sin be thus contained. My own research found no liturgical precedent for such an act. Still, the imagery haunts me. The silent girl kneeling in her cell, the hidden stitch pulling at her flesh with every breath. And Beatrice, she did not fall silent. If anything, her voice grew clearer, richer, as if she had drawn strength from the hush around her. She would speak in the refectory about how the saints were martyrs to silence, how their tongues were useless in heaven because God required no words. Some claimed they heard Magdalena and Beatrice speaking in the garden at night, their voices low and urgent, as if conspiring. Whether Beatrice sought to unmask the nun or to join her in some greater design is a question that the records leave unresolved. The breaking point came with the arrival of the bishop's envoy, Father Luis de Rivas, in September. He came with orders to investigate the letters. For 3 days he toured the convent, questioning the sisters, inspecting the infirmary. He found nothing. New pouches, new jars, new ledger. It was Beatrice who brought him the key, literally. One evening, she pressed a small iron key into his palm, whispering, "The box beneath her bed." What the priest found when he unlocked that box is described in his own hand. 16 small cloth pouches, each bearing the mark of the Sacred Heart, and within each, I cannot write it without trembling. May God forgive me for looking. He sealed the box and left before dawn, intending to take it. To 2, he never arrived. His body was found in the ravine below the convent road, his horse grazing nearby. The box was gone. The official verdict was an accident, but the Mother Superior locked herself in her chamber for 3 days afterward, and when she emerged, she could no longer speak above a whisper. The last winter of Sister Magdalena's reign was the coldest in 50 years. Frost clung to the cloister arches, and the breath of the sisters rose like incense in the dim corridors. It was during this season that the balance between Magdalena and Beatrice shifted irrevocably. Some say it was a sickness that weakened the nun, others that Beatrice had finally found her rival's deepest fear. Whatever the cause, the ledger recovered decades later from a hidden compartment in the chapel wall shows no new entries. After January 1687, the final line reads, "One tongue yet to be taken, but it is mine, and I dare not." What followed is pieced together from conflicting testimonies. One account says Beatrice confronted Magdalena in the infirmary, holding one of the pouches and demanding to know whose tongue it was. Another claims the girl gathered the remaining pouches and cast them into the convent's fire. where they hissed and split like chestnuts. The most persistent story, however, is the one whispered even now in San Telmo, that Beatrice sewed Magdalena, his own tongue, into her scapula while the nun slept, using the same black thread the older woman had used for so many others. When Magdalena awoke, she could make no sound, not a scream, not a prayer. The bishop's men arrived in March, this time with soldiers. They found Magdalena seated in the chapel, her mouth stitched closed, her eyes wet but unblinking. Beatrice was gone. Some believed she fled to the coast and boarded a ship to the New World. Others insisted she still walked the convent grounds at night, voiceless, her tongue hidden away in some secret place. Sister Magdalena was taken to trial in secret and condemned to perpetual silence in a remote hermitage. She died there in 1691. The convent of Santa was abandoned soon after, its white walls left to crack and crumble. And yet, when I visited the ruins last spring, I found in the dust of the old infirmary a fragment of linen, black thread still biting into its edges. I did not open it. I do not wish to know. But I left before dusk, for as the wind rose through the arches, I heard them, the whispers, countless, shapeless, rising from the stones. They did not speak in any tongue I could name, but they were trying, always trying, to be heard.